What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Last Inning Touchdown Podcast, the Lit Podcast, here on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, and other podcasting sites. We can be found at anchor.com/lastInningTouchdown. What is up, Logan? We are back. We are a couple days late, but man, there's a lot of stuff that's been happening, and we want to get you all that information. How you doing, Logan? What's up?
I'm doing good. We're 2 days late on me.
That's all right. That's all right.
On me.
Well, because
I worked way too late.
Because we're late, we have a bunch of information that everybody would have had to wait till next week to hear us talk about. So it actually kind of works out because a lot of stuff has happened in between today and Wednesday
and
that we wouldn't have got to talk about.
Nothing happened in football, so I guess not nothing. That's not true. Trades happen. Yeah, but none of the trades are official. But
nothing too major. But
baseball.
Holy cow, baseball! All right. We're going to just do the typical. I'll run through them real quick, and then we will dig into it. So Fowler goes to the Angels, Arenado to the Cardinals. Ozuna's possibly signing with the Braves, should be. Wong to the Brewers. Alex Cobb traded to the Angels. Nelson Cruz re-signed with the Twins. Chris Archer signs with the Rays. Didi Gregorius back with the Phillies. Eddie Rosario with the Indians. Joc Peterson signs with the Cubs. Steven Matz traded to the Blue Jays, and the reports of Trevor Bauer signing with the Dodgers. Boom! That's a lot of baseball stuff. The puppies are they're excited. They cannot get enough of this baseball offseason as they are barking their heads off in the background because they love it. They can't get enough. I think they want us to start with Cardinals baseball, judging by their excitement.
Yeah, probably.
So the Cardinals, on paper, basically traded Dexter Fowler for Nolan Arenado.
No, Austin Gomber is way better than Dexter Fowler.
No, but I mean, as far as what you lose there, I mean, you get rid of Fowler, you lost Gomber and some bags of baseballs, and you got Nolan Arenado, which I know you were originally not big on the Cardinals getting Arenado, but since they basically got him for free, how do you feel now?
So one thing that I always said that I was never really the biggest fan of them getting. There's a lot happening. They started barking because there was a loud crash at my house. Oh. It's like there was like a car accident in my neighborhood or something. Which is crazy. But so Arenado, I was like not excited, but I was excited. So I always would like the Arenado, but I was really terrified of the contract, especially in the later years. But when I learned that and I was a big fan of believing in Nolan Gorman, Matthew Lavatore, and Dylan Carlson, especially Dylan Carlson. And the fact that the Cardinals traded for Nolan Arenado and didn't trade a single one of their top 10. They also didn't trade, and they only lost one MLBer, and they gained $51 million. Makes me go from, I wasn't the most excited about, Nolan Arenado from like when we've talked about this before, because Nolan Arenado of the Cardinals is like the classic thing that's been happening since like 2017. And because he just looks like a guy who would just look right in a Cardinal uniform, and he plays for Colorado, and they're always suck. So the Cardinals finessed him. But it was
like always.
Yeah, it was. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I wasn't like super stoked talking about it before, but when I heard what we gave up to get it and what we actually received in return is baffling.
Money wise, you're basically playing Arenado for Fowler's money. That's basically what's happening. Because you basically got Arenado for free from the Rockies, and the Cardinals are paying Fowler's 2021 salary pretty much.
Yeah.
So basically, you're paying Fowler's money to Arenado.
So for people that don't know, Nolan Arenado is making $0 from St. Louis next year. Apparently, his 2021 contract is in full from the Rockies, except incentives, I think. Which hopefully, he wins an MVP.
Well, yeah, those are money you like to spend. So
exactly. So I believe in 2021 the Cardinals are spending $0 for Nolan Arenado. So that's kind of what he was saying, because the Cardinals are paying $12 million of the like $14.5 million for Dexter Fowler to play for the Angels, because he wasn't going to play in St. Louis. Right. He was just a guy that kind of ousted his time. Normally during the end of contracts, you look back at the contract because the last year or two are never going to be that good. But Then you look at his previous 4 years in St. Louis, and really none of them were that good. And including 1 year where I believe he was just the flat out worst player in baseball when you talk about salary and what he did, like when he hit 180 all the way into August before he broke his ankle. But so I don't know. It's just baffling. I just can't get over it that they traded for Nolan Arenado.
And you gave
up nothing important.
And you kind of made this comment. I think this was in a private conversation where you basically said that the Cardinals got Goldschmidt and Arenado and gave up nothing to get two fantastic players.
There was a list that came out that who is the best first base, third base combo in baseball, and the Cardinals were on that list. And it was five. They put 5 teams out there, right? Or 6, 7. I think it was 7 teams. 7 teams out there. Who was the best first and third base combo? Cardinals were on that list. And they traded Luke Weaver, a guy who led the league in losses last year and ERA. When I say led the league in losses and ERA, I mean he had the most losses and I believe had over a 7 ERA. And then Carson Kelly, who was their backup catcher, who the Cardinals said was never going to be good enough to catch in the pros. And Arizona challenged the Cardinals and then immediately moved him to third base because he couldn't catch. And then he can hit a little bit. Okay, I'll give it to him. He can hit a little bit, but nothing that mattered compared to that. We got Paul Goldschmidt for him. So we traded Luke Weaver, a guy who was never going to play for the Cardinals, and Carson Kelly, a guy who was never going to play for the Cardinals, for Paul Goldschmidt. So that's what you have to think about, when you think about your team's trading. This is for any team. It's Carson Kelly was at one point a top catching prospect, but he was never going to play because Yachty kept playing, and the guy beneath him was better. So them trading him to Arizona was kind of just a finesse move, and then.
But how good would the Cardinals be if they didn't trade a Rosarena?
We'll see.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, you don't know. I mean, that guy had.
Right.
Look at David Freese going into this postseason had the greatest postseason in baseball history, right? Arguably, and that guy went on to be not very good for the next couple years, and then had a couple, solid years for the Dodgers. Coming off the bench and being a solid postseason producer. But people are overreacting to Rosarena. Do I think he's going to be better than David Freese? Yes. But I don't think he's the second best player in baseball to Mike Trout right now. But I don't know. It's just crazy. Me and Jason were talking about it. Everyone's been talking about it. The fact that the Cardinals traded.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of projected
Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. They traded Austin Gomper is the best player out of those guys. And I actually love Austin Gomper. I've been a big fighter for Austin Gomper for years. He got hurt in 2019, which really slowed down his development into the league because then a guy like Ponce de Leon came in and pitched okay.
And discovered Florida.
What?
And discovered Florida.
Exactly, he did. But so it was just, I'm sad about Gomper, but I'll give up Gomper for Nolan Arenado every day of the week. And I think he's going to be happy to tell his kids one day, guys, I just want you to know that the Colorado Rockies taught me that I was as good as Nolan Arenado.
There you go. Exactly. And the thing is with Arenado is there's things that always come up. So last year was a tough year for him, but he had shoulder problems last year, and you're talking about, honestly, this is what I instantly think of when I think of Arenado in a Cardinals uniform. Does it not just flash you back to our childhood of watching Scott Rowland over at third base? That's instantly what I think of at Arenado, wearing a Cardinals uniform. That's just going to be just like that.
He looks good in a Cardinal uniform. The edits, it looks just natural.
So Arenado, though, I mean, you're talking about a guy that had what was a pretty tough season for himself because of shoulder issues, but he still batted .253 with 8 home runs. That's a guy that's hurt, and he still produced, pretty decently.
A platinum glove?
Right, and played.
Did he win the platinum? I don't know. He won a gold.
He has 4 platinum gloves. I don't have years though.
If the Cardinals sign Yachty, they'll have 6 of the 8 platinum gloves.
So, but I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, you got to think, all things considered, a guy playing hurt or playing not at 100%, and he still produces at a pretty decent level. And the home road splits is what everyone always wants to say about Arenado. And last year, yes, his home road splits were rough last year, but in 2019, they weren't that bad. I mean, yes, his numbers are a lot better in Colorado, but his numbers are still really good everywhere else.
But the thing with home runs, supposed to be able to realize, is they normalize out for the best players. Matt Holliday is a Cardinal Hall of Famer and was the one of the guys behind Albert Pujols that made Pujols as good as he was. I mean, because for the best players to be the best players, you have to have a guy hitting behind you that causes some fear, or they'll just walk you 24/7. AKA why Paul Goldschmidt had like a 550 on base going into September because we had Brad Miller hitting behind him. And so you're going to add, but things normalize for the better hitters. Matt Holliday, dominant in Colorado, right? And then it just normalized when he went elsewhere. I mean, it just happens. DJ LeMahieu,
you still have to make
really
hard contact.
Yeah, DJ LeMahieu was a good player, and now he's a top 3 MVP in back-to-back seasons out there in New York. I mean, yeah, they play in a short porch, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm saying is the best players are going to hit everywhere. It doesn't matter. Like, of course, his home splits are going to be better than his road splits. He plays in Colorado, okay?
Right. But that's the thing
Mike Trout's there because you get used to it and you play that way. In 2019,
though, outside of Colorado, he still was basically a 280 hitter with 20 home runs and 50 RBIs outside of Colorado. So it's like, I'm sorry, he could finish the season.
Sorry.
He could finish
40 and 100.
He could literally finish the season batting 280 with 20 home runs and you'd be happy. Like, that's a solid season, batting 280 with 20 home runs, and that's literally just his away split. And yet
exactly. So
doubled
if you duplicate his away split,
yeah, obviously he wouldn't have 50 RBIs because that, unless he got hurt. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? That'd be nuts. But I think this is the part of this. Like, Nolan Arenado, big flashy name, big flashy player. I love Arenado. I've always loved watching him play. Like, he's just fun to watch. I mean, I don't see how you can't like him. Like, he's never done anything to make anyone not like him. But the thing is about Arenado, more than anything, is his name is huge in this trade. But what he does is he makes it so a guy like these other Cardinals players are now not expected to do as much. You're not asking Paul DeJong to be the 4-hitter protecting Goldschmidt every week. You're not asking Harrison Bader to bat 300 anymore. You're not asking these players to step up into roles that they're not really ready for. I mean, you've got young players you're trying to develop, but you've been playing them in a lineup where you needed them to produce.
Dylan Carlson, at 21 years old, in his first MLB action, was batting 4th in the postseason in like his 15th game ever played because of how bad the team
is. There's so much less pressure now on these guys that you're trying on all of them. But yeah, definitely a guy like him.
Specifically, your young superstar, because going into the season this year, you were going to ask a guy who's never played pro baseball before to hit behind Paul Goldschmidt and say, this is, and we're going to have to develop
when you ask him to do that, you're really asking two things. You're saying, A, we need you to produce because you're right in the middle of the hoarder. But we also need you to produce because if you don't, Paul Goldschmidt's not going to see anything to hit all year either. And so that's so much pressure. And now you've got 2 professional hitters batting 3 and 4. And now DeJong can slide down to 5, which is nice. And then you've got options at where you want to play other people and where you want to bat other people. And that's
Edmund hitting leadoff and Carlson hitting second.
That's exactly
hitting 6.
I really see that as the Edmund leadoff, Carlson second, Goldschmidt third, Arenado 4, DeJong 5, and then obviously
Yachty 6th.
Yeah, and then obviously it's a projection of if Yachty comes back. Yeah, and I mean there's part of you that still hopes that with this alleviated pressure, maybe O'Neill can figure out how to hit a little bit better than he did last year also. I mean, it's kind of hard not to play better than that. So, I mean, unless you're just not going to be a major league player. But, I mean, I think a lot of these Cardinals players are going to take a step forward now because a lot of that pressure is gone. And, I mean, especially like the pitching staff that's been carrying the team for so long, they're going to have a lot of pressure relieved. And like this is the big thing that the Cardinals need more than anything. So I was looking up his splits for 2019, his home run, and I happened to notice this. In the first half of 2019, the guy batted .312 with 20 home runs. In the second half of the year, he batted .319 with 21 home runs. The dude is consistent all year long, and the Cardinals have just really needed that guy that comes out and year round is going to be the same guy. You know, when someone is struggling, when one of these young players is having a rough go, you know Arenado's right there in your heart of your order doing the same thing he's been doing all season long, and that's going to make a guy like Paul Goldschmidt sit there and keep doing the same thing all season long because Goldschmidt's been a consistent player his whole career until he kind of came to the Cardinals where it's harder to be consistent when no one's afraid to pitch to you because well, who's next?
No,
Who cares?
No, they're terrified. Exactly. They're terrified.
So yeah, that's what I mean. Like they're not afraid to just throw you balls in the dirt because here's a slider breaking away because if I walk you, oh no, Yadier Molina is batting fourth. Like
Paul DeYoung, Yadier Molina, Brad Miller.
Yeah, look out for 30-year-old career minor leaguer Brad Miller. Like and so
that Marcel was there. I understand.
Yeah, that's the big part that like isn't necessarily being talked about, and I get it because it's exciting because Arenado, but when you dig into it, like that's really what Arenado brings. More than just his name and his great play, he brings this big sigh of relief for all of the younger players who may have been struggling or have been asked to do way too much too early, because there's a lot of times you see that in major league young hitters that when they're asked to do too much too early, it's really, really hard for them to produce.
The biggest person that this could affect, well, there's two. Hopefully the person I think that it affects the most is Paul DeYoung, and Paul DeYoung comes out and just is an absolute star because he's shown for months at a time that he can be not just a star, but like he once made an All-Star team 2 years ago, and he really only played good baseball till halfway through May, and those stats carried him all the way to the All-Star game, and he was horrible like the rest of the time. And that year he played like 161 of the 162 games. And like a guy like Paul DeYoung, but the biggest guy who could be the biggest game changer is a guy like Tyler O'Neill, who just has insane power. We know he's going to strike out all the time, but you look at him. If anyone's ever taken a look at Tyler O'Neill, I know a lot of people probably don't know him as well as other people because St. Louis hasn't been like this dominant force. But when you look at Tyler O'Neill, he is like 5'11" of just pure muscle. He's a tank. He is an absolute tank of a human being.
Well, and you're not going to ask him to bat 280 anymore. You're going to say, exactly. Hey, if you can go out and bat 250 with 20 home runs, dude, you're going to be great. Like, that's all we need from you. Bat 250, hit 20 home runs, and he can do that. That is reasonable for him.
Hopefully. Yeah, exactly. That's what he can do. And we've learned that apparently he's the best left fielder in all of baseball with what he did last year defensively. Oh, my Lord. I didn't realize until after the season when they were talking about it.
Yeah, I had no idea. When he won the Gold Glove, I was like, what?
Well, I knew before going into the Gold Glove because I looked at all the Gold Glove guys, but going in, he had the highest defensive WAR in all of baseball last year, I think, at 3.4 in 2 months.
Wow.
The dude almost had, but his overall WAR was 2.8 because he was a negative 0.6 WAR at the plate. The dude the dude was so crazy good defensively. It just wasn't fair. And that's one reason. And to go to the next, not the next time, but the next signing is one of the Cardinals faithfuls, one of their loves that we've watched for a long time. We've watched him get picked off to lose the World Series game, and also hit countless walk-offs and win multiple Gold Gloves. Colton Wong left us.
He did.
And which was good by the Cardinals and good for him. Take the money, take 2 years, and make a good amount of money with the third-year option.
And he's going to go somewhere that he's going to hit, too. And
he's going to play every day. Yep. But the thing that I'm sad about Colton Wong is if we would have signed Colton Wong to play second base, this might be an over-exaggeration because I'm a biased Cardinal fan, it could be the greatest defensive infield of all time if Colton Wong would have signed with the Cardinals.
That is a very bold statement because didn't they have Fernando Vina, Edgar Renteria, and Scott Rowland all in the same infield at one point?
Did Vina play with Rowland?
I don't know that. I know they all won Gold Gloves.
But I do know that Paul DeYoung's a Gold Glove finalist. I do know that Nolan Arenado was an 8-time Gold Glove winner and a 4-time Platinum Glove winner. I do know Colton Wong's won the last 2 Gold Gloves and been a Gold Glove finalist 4 times. And I know that Paul Goldschmidt's been a Gold Glove finalist 6 times with 2 or 3 Gold Gloves. So all of a sudden, Cardinals pitchers.
2002 and 2003, they played on the same team.
Okay.
So you had and then
2 years.
And then Pujols, obviously. So you had 4 Gold Glovers on the infield.
Pujols was garbage then. Because his first 2 years, I don't think he played first base.
No, he was playing all over the place.
Yeah, he was playing left field.
He was like Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah, exactly. And then he figured out at first, Bill, he's better defensively than Miguel Cabrera, but he figured out at first and all of a sudden was dominant. But yeah, it would be nuts to see. I get to watch Colton Wong every day. I've never seen someone play second base like Colton Wong does. That dude, his range factor, and
he was one of those players for the longest time. When he first came up, he made every great play and screwed up every routine play. And it was like, dude, just figure out the routine play. You're so good.
He is now. Obviously, I'm going to watch Nolan Arenado play every day now, so it's going to be changing my mind that Nolan Arenado is the best defensive player in baseball. But from my bias, I watched way more Cardinals games than anything else. Watching Colton Wong play second base, to me, was the best defensive player in sports, in MLB sports, because like that's just who I saw the most, right? So that's who I loved the most. The guy I watched make the jumping catch with the bases loaded up one against the Cubs to in the 8th inning to just save a game, and the Cardinals wound up clinching the playoffs the next day. I mean, just what he did for St. Louis, and he started off as rough as anybody ever could. And one of his first ever games, he got picked off to lose a World Series game with the hottest man in the world at the plate, with Carlos Beltran. And Carlos Beltran, I remember just staring at him, looking at him, and he flips his helmet straight down, all pissed off, and he has the right to be pissed off because he blew it. Not Beltran, but Wong. And
Wong had a tough first couple of years because he really wasn't getting an opportunity. Like they were every chance they could, they took him out of the lineup and got rid of him.
Matheny wouldn't stick with him, and he just kept bouncing between starting bench, and then
minors, starting bench, minors, starting bench. Yeah, he was all over the place.
He hit the minors once or twice, but his career minor league stats in AAA, he's like a 390 AAA.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So in 2013, he played 32 games in major leagues, and he played 107 in AAA. He batted 150. He played 150. He hit 153 in the majors, but hit 303 in the minors. Then in 2014, he played 113 games in the majors and another 18 in the minors. So it's every season he had to go back down to the minors pretty much. I mean, 2015 he stayed in the majors, but then 2016 he had another stint in the minors. 2017 he played a little bit in the minors. Like he's had to deal with
the head coach. And guess who the head coach was at the whole time? Mike Matheny. Then they fired Mike Matheny. Mike Schultz said, Colton Wong, you're my guy, and you're going to be my guy every day. And all of a sudden, that year, I think it was 2018, if you look at his splits, his batting average was up 40 points the year Matheny got fired in the second half. And then he ran from there and all of a sudden won multiple Gold Gloves, and Mike Schultz really proved the best of him. Mike Schultz is 1,000 times better coach than Mike Matheny was in St. Louis. Mike Schultz is a great coach, but I'm not saying he's the best in baseball or anything, but I just think he's a great coach overall. But yeah, I'm sad to see a guy like Colton Wong leave. I mean, we're obviously dominating with this Cardinal talk, but we're just so excited. I'm just so excited that I wasn't the most excited with Nolan out having to eat that contract, but
yeah, I mean, and it's probably going to hurt in a few years.
I'm not even worried about.
But that's the thing is, it's going to hurt in a few years. But if you think about, if you take what was left in those last 3 or 4 and say, oh well, let's divide it amongst the years we had him and not just those last couple of years, it's really not as bad. But
he's top heavy. Like this $51 million over the next 2.
I believe part of the trade was he would defer part of the money. To the end.
Exactly, because the Cardinals didn't want to spend too much right now, which makes no sense to me because next year they're dumping payroll, but maybe they have hopefully better plans the next offseason. I said they weren't going to do anything this offseason unless it was a trade because we all knew they weren't going to sign anybody.
We weren't expecting any major moves.
Just like Jason said, they were never going to sign anybody because there's no one that fits the Cardinals style.
Yeah.
I mean, Lindor, but he was a trade.
And
Springer
everybody
didn't really
wanted
fit the Cardinals style. Springer didn't fit the Cardinal style because he had a controversy. The Cardinals have a certain boring style they have where they've got good baseball. They got a bunch of dudes that pretty much do a lot of the right things. They're a hard-working club, and that's one thing that people say that Arenado is one of the hardest-working guys. So he's going to join a team that's got Goldschmidt and Carpenter on the same team, who Carpenter's not that good at baseball anymore, but everybody has said for the last friggin' decade that he's one of the hardest workers in the sport.
So
you're going to set that example for guys like Dylan Carlson and Nolan Gorman. Nolan Gorman's going to grow up and go, if I need to be great, to be a great third baseman in this league, I'm watching the best third baseman arguably in the league right now every day. He needs to take advantage of that opportunity to watch him and go, man, this is what it takes.
I agree. Yeah, and I think that you kind of mentioned that we're dominating with this Cardinals talk, but I do think that some of that is because the other major thing that happened is Bauer to the Dodgers, and we've been talking about that all offseason. So this Arenado thing is a lot bigger news because Bauer has been going somewhere for a while. And we've had our opinions on Bauer. So if you're interested in our true opinions on Bauer, if you listen to some of the older podcasts, we'll definitely talk about
it. Last week.
Right. And so, but I do think that, and I don't know how you get around this because leaks are all over baseball, right? But somebody probably should have let the Cardinals Twitter know before they posted reunited with Dexter Fowler and Arenado, and then an hour later, Dexter Fowler gets traded.
Yeah, there was a 5-hour gap between Nolan Arenado and Dexter Fowler's hugging picture when they were in Colorado, and it said reunited.
Poor guy.
And then 5 hours later, Dexter Fowler was an angel.
They did him dirty.
Clearly, the person who runs the social media has no idea what the plans are,
Right.
because Dexter Fowler, I guess, and the Cardinals had known that they were going to trade him for a long time because they had talked to him. He had already waived his no trade clause to certain teams.
Right.
So it wasn't like he had waived it to like all 29 teams, but he had waived it to certain teams. And as long as they could give him the right opportunity, because the Cardinals pretty much told him that there is no way in hell you're getting over 350 at-bats. No shot. And that guy's used to like 600 at-bats in a full season.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're going to tell him, we're going to cut like 250 to 300.
You're like, hey, you can stay,
minimum.
But we're not going to play you.
The maximum amount of at-bats you're going to get us. Why would they? You have
no, right. You're not our future, unfortunately. Sorry.
You don't want to hold back Dylan Carlson because he has nothing left to prove in the minors. And that's really what you need to do with these like superstar young guys. You want to make it to where they have like nothing left to prove, because that means they've done everything right. Dylan Carlson's done literally everything the right way. And then you have three guys to sprinkle around out there. Tyler O'Neill, Justin Williams, and Lane Thomas. And people are like, well, who are Justin Williams and Lane Thomas? Justin Thomas, pretty fast guy, can play really good center field. Lane Thomas is a guy who was actually dominating in 2019 for like a month, maybe less than that, probably less than a month, probably like a 3-week period. And then he took like a 100-mile-an-hour fastball to the forearm against the Cubs on Sunday Night Baseball, and then I believe. And then he, I think, stole second base, and then they took him out after the steal because his forearm was broken. And then last year, you didn't have time to let him, like, then he missed the rest of 2019, missed obviously almost all of 2020 because of COVID. And then they didn't have time to really get his form back. So they pretty much said, all right, we have to go with Bader. We don't have time to let you figure it out. So we're going with Bader and O'Neill. And then so he's a guy who can, they basically just told Dexter Fowler, you're old and struggling, and we have three guys that we really need to figure out.
We've got a lot of mouths to feed, and if you stay here, it may not be yours.
Is it going to be O'Neill, Williams, or...
As you were talking about that, it got me thinking, because we were saying players that Arenado really benefits, and I think Harrison Bader's one of them too, because now you feel a lot more comfortable saying, Bader, go play really good center field, because we don't need your bat as much also. Like, we're not... You can bat eighth, great. Be our great defensive center fielder, great. Bat eighth, who cares? Like, that, he can play that role until someone else can prove they can do it better.
And guess what? We've been saying that the whole time.
Isn't that weird? It's like we know what we're talking about.
It's like, oh my God, the Cardinals don't want Harrison Bader to hit 300. Oh wait, they've never asked him to. He's done exactly what they've asked him to, and he's lived with a boatload of hate. And the second he becomes a free agent, he's going to leave and sign somewhere else. And the Cardinals are going to go, man, not having a center fielder to watch every day is kind of a struggle. Wait, this guy isn't like the third fastest guy in the league and steal balls from the gaps and, compete for gold gloves every year?
The big misconception about, you're not deeper baseball fans is that all outfield positions are the same. Oh, he's an outfielder. Okay, well, it's different. Even left and right field are different. It takes a different type of player to play each position. And that's why you see players that struggle so much if they move to even a different corner outfield, let alone center. And in center, you've really got a lot of responsibility out there that people don't realize. You're literally the quarterback of the outfield. Like, you're in charge of telling pretty much everybody what to do at all times, and you have to cover more ground. It's not the same at all. Like, and so you can't just throw anybody out there.
You got a lot of field to deal with. So you got to have a big arm, and you got to be accurate. Or if you make an inaccurate throw, guys are advancing bases on the regular. And having a guy like him to be able to say, we're going to stick him here, and we're not going to worry about it for the full season is just a very blessed thing that the Cardinals really have. And Cardinals fans, just for some reason, want to see everybody hit 300. I'm sorry, dude. Jim Edmonds is not going to be rolling out of Harrison Bader anytime soon. Okay,
it's just not how baseball is anymore either. Everyone wants the old Cardinal style where everybody's batting 300, and that just doesn't happen anymore. There's like 5 guys in the whole league batting 300 now.
And that was in those 3 years, 2 years in 2004 and 2005. That was a cheat code the Cardinals were playing with. They were literally playing with like the three best players in the conference in the same division. I mean, in the same team, hitting second, third, and fourth. When Edmonds, Pujols, and Nolan were batting back to back to back, it was literally three of the best players in all of baseball were hitting second, third, and fourth. And you're like, how do we deal with this as teams? And they were like, oh, and then we would switch Edmonds and Nolan if they were hitting second or fourth, depending on pitching matchup. If one was a lefty and one was a righty. And you're like, wait, what? These guys are so good they can switch their four hitters out. Like, it wasn't like the Cardinals.
And that's not even to mention the fact that they had studs everywhere on the field besides that too. Like
you had guys just eating Gold Gloves behind the plate in Mike Matheny early and Yadier Molina for the next, forever. I mean, you had guys just being Ryan Ludwig was a guy who had 30 home runs like 3 times for St. Louis. I mean, no one even cares. Like they were so stacked, and Cardinals fans are so spoiled by that they think that for some reason having a run from 2004 to 2013, that's how every single year should be, and that's not realistically fair to and this is an MLB term. The Cardinals are a small market franchise. The fact that they're even close, the fact that they have 13 straight winning seasons is and to be considered a small market is baffling. I mean, teams can't handle that. Even the highest markets can't handle that stuff. I mean, it's impressive what they do. You just got to enjoy it as you go. You can definitely understand the frustrations, but like at the same time, not everyone's gonna hit 300. You have to have guys that have their roles and they do their roles well. And guys like Harrison Bader.
Next time, the Cardinals fans, next time they want to be frustrated by anything, remember that I have been a diehard Marlins fan since I was in 5th grade. And when I was in 5th grade is the last time they won the World Series. So
they made the playoffs. They made the playoffs.
No, they made the playoffs last year.
Well,
gotcha. No. So what I'm saying is, though,
you went from 5th grade to 28 before they made the postseason again.
Absolutely insane. And so that's suffering. You see a lot of stuff come through being that bad for that long.
I watched.
It's a very different perspective.
World Series in 9 years because of the Cardinals going 2004, 6, 11, and 13.
Absolutely insane.
It's 10 years. 10 years. That's 40% of the World Series the Cardinals were participating in. That is absolutely nuts.
So
this guy, to hurt Jason Moore, got to watch Jose Fernandez, Marcel Ozuna, Christian Yelich, Giancarlo Stanton, JT Realmuto all be on the same baseball team, and they all be garbage. Now, I
also watched Hanley Ramirez leave. I watched Jose Reyes leave.
The GOAT, Dontrell Willis.
Right. I mean, there's been so many good players come through the Marlins in that time frame, and still not a good team. I mean, that's what's crazy is how many great players have gone through the Marlins since 2003, and still never once could they put it together to be a good team. Yeah. But anyway. There are some other big signings and big moves that I feel like we should give opinions about, so we should probably stay a little shorter on them. So this Ozuna back to the Braves. Personally, I think this is a great move for him. Ozuna just had an insane season, and the Braves are basically built almost identical to last year. So to me, that makes a lot of sense if you're Ozuna. Keep playing where it's working, and you're playing in competitive baseball. So I'm all for that signing. I think it's a good one. I think it was like 4 years, $65 million too, so not
50-year option for $80 million. But yeah, big time signing by Atlanta and Ozuna. Good. He's set for the rest of life, and he's set his entire generations up. And he's gonna play on a good ass baseball team, dude. Got the MVP
and he played insane with them. Yeah. So it obviously something was working. So that's a great move by him. No reason to leave.
The MVP.
Yeah, no reason to leave when you had such success there.
And they're going to pay you $15 million a year to play. Oh, hell yeah.
Something else stands out to me here. I saw this on Twitter. So the Phillies re-signed Didi Gregorius. And I saw a bunch of Phillies fans getting all hyped up, like, oh, the Phillies are finally doing something. And my first thought was, you literally just signed back the same players that didn't win baseball games last year for you. You literally have the exact same team as last year now, and you didn't win games. Like, your 2 big free agent signings played for you last year when you didn't make the playoffs. So I thought that was kind of funny. So I don't know if they're going to how much more
playoffs in a shortened season.
With more teams in the playoffs.
2 NL Central teams finished under 500 and made the playoff.
Yeah, so that was interesting. But, I mean, they are doing something at least, so I guess you got to give them credit there. But it's like, oh, the Phillies are finally trying to be contenders. It's like, or you just put together the same team you just did last year, but that's okay.
the Phillies for a long time.
Now, don't get me wrong, Didi played great for them, so I thought that was.
I like Didi Gregorius.
Yeah, I think that was a good play for them to keep him.
But the thing with them has never been their offense.
No.
I mean, their offense hasn't hit the expectations they were supposed to be, but at the same time, it was never really their problem.
Right.
The problem is they have the worst bullpen in the world for 2 straight years. I mean, you can't.
Agreed.
I mean, like, their starting pitching sucks too. So it's not like what Washington had when they had a crappy bullpen, but they had like god tier starting pitching. They have one starting pitcher in the worst bullpen in the league, and you're like, well, okay. Our offense has to score 7 a game for us to win.
There's another. This is a small signing, but it does make me giggle that Chris Archer is back on the Rays. It actually makes me wonder if the Rays like know how to fix him or something. Like they got like some inside thing going here, and Chris Archer's
the Rays
again.
traded Chris Archer, and they got what's his name? Why am I blanking? Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of Chris Archer's 2 worst seasons, and then now they're signing Chris Archer again. So,
I know that's absolutely insane. It's like they're like cheating, but it's funny.
It's like Austin Gomper is going to be a free agent next year, and they're signing him back. He's going to be a stud. Like that's just pretty much what they did. They got like a superstar in Tyler Glasnow, and then they're like, all right, let's come on back, Chris Archer, and then he's going to be a stud.
So that's
somehow Chris Archer is going to be like 5 times as good there as he ever was in Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh proves that they suck at pitching because.
So I guess we wouldn't be doing our job. I guess this isn't a job, but you know what I'm saying. We wouldn't be doing our job here if we didn't talk about Bauer to the Dodgers. We have given lots and lots of opinions about Bauer to the Dodgers, or about Bauer in general. And his contract is absolutely insane. On a year-to-year basis there, 40 and then 45. That's insane. But you got to give him some credit because even as bad as it is, it's still only 3 years. So you're not like, it's not one of those, 7 years, we're well past him being good. Like there's a decent chance.
Oh my God, he's 37.
You're paying him a lot, but there's a decent chance he's going to be at least a major league pitcher for the next 3 years. If you sign him for 7, there's a good chance that 2 or 3 of those years he may not even be a major league pitcher. With pitchers, when they age, you never know when they're just going to fall off. But with a 3-year deal, it's not the worst thing in the world. As we've talked about before, I'm not the biggest believer that Bauer's success is going to be repeated. You have more faith than I do, but we've had lots and lots of discussions that you can find on our older podcast about Bauer. The interesting thing is, though, that all the reports came out that he signed with the Mets, and then he didn't, and he signed with the Dodgers. So I came up with this conclusion today. So this is what happened. Trevor Bauer did sign with the Mets. And then somebody leaked it before Trevor Bauer could make a video about it. And he said, sorry, Mets, can't sign anymore. I'm going to go sign somewhere else just so the people that leaked it are wrong because I have to be the one to announce it.
Did you know he signed like a week or 2 ago? Like he released a full-fledged video on his YouTube, on 2 YouTube channels today, I believe, about his new home. And the signing was announced today, meaning this was signed. Like this, not signed, but it was a 1,000% agreed upon that he was going to the Dodgers. And like everything else, the last like couple weeks has been just bullcrap. Yeah. And that's fine because that's who they are.
Yeah, you also regardless of that,
out there that Rachel Luba texted John Heyman the wrong team.
Yeah, just so he'd report it because they had their little Twitter beef not that long ago. So she probably she told someone in the Mets organization. She's just like, it's like some random like janitor, and she's like, oh yeah, the Bauer deal's almost done with the Mets, and that guy's like, oh, John Heyman, I know where he's going, and then boom, gotcha. With the Dodgers.
The big person. The reason why I'm checking my phone because I wanted to look this tweet. If Bob Nightingale ever tweets anything, just assume the opposite has happened. Like
you're not wrong though. You're not wrong.
The dude is wrong 1,000% of the time. He's the one who said,
you are not wrong any of the time right now with that comment.
That dude is just never right. He's so bad. I don't know how this guy.
All right. I think that
Bauer, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Dustin May, Julio Urias, and a full year taken off David Price is their 6-man rotation out there.
That's insane because here's the thing. Honestly, I think David Price is one of those guys who's probably done.
I agree.
But in a rotation like that, He doesn't need to be a starter every 5 days. He could be your long bullpen guy who makes spot starts every now and then. And you say, we're the freaking Dodgers. Have you seen our lineup? We just need 3 or 4 innings out of David Price once, 4 times a month, and we're good.
And then they have Blake Treinen, Gratterall, who just throws nasty pitches, Jansen, and the crazy, wild but effective Joseph Kelly. So
gotta love it.
I love Joe Kelly.
Got to love it.
Yeah,
but
I wanted to look at that pitching staff for the Dodgers and why I said earlier when people were talking about the Padres are going to be better and they're going to close. I actually think the Padres are going to have a lot more struggles than people give them than they think they're going to have. I think they're going to have no problem making the postseason, but I think the struggles are going to be they're going to be in first place after April, but then not much longer, and then all of a sudden the Dodgers will be like, all right, we're the Dodgers, we're flexing. It's not fair. You're there, but can you beat us in the postseason? The Cubs are the exact same thing of the Cardinals, where the Cubs were like, we're the best thing. You're not going to beat us. We're better than you. Then the Cardinals won 100 games, and all of a sudden they were like, man, this sucks. And then the Cubs beat us in the postseason. And there you go. And then that's how they flexed it, I think. But this move, I think, by the Dodgers was kind of like,
everything
Padres,
everything you did, well, here's our better.
Yeah. What the Padres, what did they do? They did something big, didn't they? They did something huge. They got
Darvish and
Snell.
And Snell,
That's what it was. Yeah. Darvish and Snell.
Although I do have my concerns about Snell, but we don't have any time for that.
Yeah.
And so we are going to wrap up baseball there on the Last Inning Touchdown podcast on Twitter, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, all kinds of places. Find us. We love you. Moving on. We're on to football here on the Last Inning Touchdown podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Google Playlist, anchor.com/Last Inning Touchdown, and we are on Twitter, Last Inning TD. Logan, football. It is almost the Super Bowl. There's not a whole lot to actually really talk about here with football. But before we get into Super Bowl talk, so the Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford and the entire pick selection of the Rams is going to the Lions as well, basically. What are you thinking about this deal?
I think that I don't know how the Lions that's just so much money.
But so this is what I look at this, and I am the Rams, and I think, man, I locked up Goff because I believe in him as a quarterback. And now I've decided I don't believe in Goff as a quarterback.
Yeah.
So in order to get rid of this money that I've given Goff, who I no longer believe in, I'm going to have to remove every draft pick we have for the next 50 years. And I'm going to receive a quarterback that I think is slightly better than Goff. So it's Stafford can be good, but I don't know that he has. I just don't know. I think the problem with Goff, I think Stafford's going to have the same problem Goff did, is that I just don't think that the Rams have ever in recent history found ways to develop good weapons for their quarterbacks that really on a consistent basis produce offense. I mean, it seems like the Rams in the last few years have just, they're like all or nothing. Like they either have a huge game or it's an absolute dud. And I feel like that isn't honestly that far off from how Stafford kind of had his experience with the Lions. So in more recent years, I mean, it was either Stafford had a great game or the offense did nothing. And I just kind of wonder, I don't know. I just feel like if I'm the Rams, I mean, I get that you wanted to dump the salary, but man, you gave up a lot of your future too to get, and you, I mean, I guess you basically just got a slightly better Jared Goff in return as well. But I don't know, man. I just feel like they gave up a ton. I think I would have eaten more of Goff's contract to keep those picks. I think I would have eaten it to just keep those picks.
I think this is better. I think it's better than you think it is. Do I think this is God tier or anything like that? No, I wasn't one of the people that were reacting on Twitter freaking out. But I think Sean McVay is a lot better of a coach than Stafford's really ever played with, especially since Caldwell. When the Lions fired Caldwell, they were the stupidest things I've ever seen in their lives. But I think that McVay and Stafford will do really good together. I think Stafford won't turn the ball over as much. I think, which was the big deal, that the fact that Goeff tied for the league in turnovers. I believe I completely agree with you that they really struggle to evaluate skill position talent. They seem to do a good job at evaluating line talent, and
that's why their running backs always produces, because their line is so
yeah,
good.
and then they do a good job of getting decent running backs out there, nothing special. But I mean, they traded a first round pick for Brandon Cooks, right, and then traded him for a second. So I mean, you lost a pick there, and he really wasn't that good. I mean, Robert Woods is solid; he's a good number 2 receiver, but and then Cooper Kupp's like an okay, he's a good slot receiver. Tight ends, they're kind of just like all over the place. They did kind of have like a breakout year from a tight end this year, I believe.
It could be because tight ends were just terrible this year too. So his breakout was just in comparison. So
yeah, compared to everyone else. But like, yeah, I agree in the fact that they really struggled to get like a top 2 wide receiver. And you know, you're sitting here looking at the Super Bowl, and you're looking at these teams, and you're telling me I have a Tyreek Hill who is a pure number 1 receiver.
No question.
I have a freak of nature tight end
who's also a number 1 receiver.
Yes, and then I have 3 number 2 wide receivers. So we have a 1 and 3 twos. I have Sammy Watkins the 2, Robinson. I mean, all those guys are like they're good receivers.
They're solid.
And then on the other side, you have Chris Godwin, who's a really good number 2. Last in 2019, he was a number 1.
Godwin can be
Mike Evans is a number 1.
Mike Evans has been a number 1.
And Antonio Brown's been hurt, but we know that Antonio Brown was a number 1 for a long time.
Yeah, so that's
and was one of the most electric guys. And then you're sitting here like, okay, running back, the Chiefs have a guy who's a really good pass catcher out of the backfield, and Tampa's got a couple good backs down like these, like
both teams have a couple good backs, yeah.
And the what am I trying to say here? Patriots, Buccaneers have Gronkowski, who is one of the best blocking tight ends in football history, and who can also. Enough. Yeah, it's not, and that's why when Pro Football Focus came out today or yesterday stating that Travis Kelce has had 1 90-grade season in his career, and Gronk's had 7. A lot of Kansas City fans got butthurt, but it's like the dude's not that good of a blocker, and that's why a lot of people who
they also like almost never ask Kelce to block either, though,
because he's such a threat. So that's not like all his
he's
fault.
Such a threat that they're like, well, we don't want to waste. That'd be like saying, oh, I want my number 1 receiver to come block.
And then you have, I don't know. So that's understandable, but it hurts his, advanced stats.
Right.
But that's why like people after 2019 season said Kittle was the best tight end in football, because Kittle is like one of the best blocking tight ends in football, and one of the best receiving tight ends in football. So Kittle missed a lot of this year, obviously due to injury, but what I'm saying is there's just a boatload of weapons on the outside, and obviously the Chiefs have Andy Reid as a head coach, which is just better than everybody else when you're talking about an offensive mind. I don't even know how Bruce Arians is even good, but I think it's because Tom Brady's there and they signed a bunch of weapons, and there you go. And I don't know. I've never been a believer of Bruce Arians, but
I do want to give a little bit of a little compliment here, Logan. I'll admit this, that I am not big on this whole coaches thing. But your coaches, man. You are all over it. I probably couldn't even name most of the coaches in the NFL, and you're like, man, I like this guy. I don't like this guy. I like the way this guy calls. I'm like, I don't even know who that guy is, but So I got to give you some credit there for knowing your coach stats.
Obviously Andy Reid has been an offensive mind for a long time, so that's not like anything crazy. Bruce Arians is clearly someone who's done decent things in his NFL career. He's been fired once, I believe, out of Arizona. Is that right? But anyways, it's just, I don't know, coaches are important. And I think, to go back to what I said before, me and my dad have had this conversation 1,000 times, to go back to Stafford, being there and, him not going to have those big weapons, kind of like, similar to some Detroit times. I think he'll be better now than he would be in Detroit. I think he'll have a lot more success because his team's a lot better overall. Defense is really good, stuff like that. So I think he might actually win a postseason game or two, maybe make the NFC title next year. But I don't know. It's just, overall, I think they gave up too much, but I think at the same time, like, this put them in the best position to win a Super Bowl.
So I do think it's interesting, though. It's all good.
Yeah.
It is interesting though, like to think about. Despite, I mean, I get that there was a big salary dump there, but how much the Rams gave up to get Stafford in this deal. I mean, I know they wasn't truly to get Stafford, but like they obviously wanted a NFL quarterback in return because they didn't just dump him for nothing. Like they got something back. But I think it's interesting that they gave up that many picks in that, and it makes you wonder what is a team going to have to get up to get like Deshaun Watson, who's now said he officially requested the trade and has made statements that he will not play next year for Houston. So he will sit out if they don't trade him, is what the reports were saying. So I do think it's interesting, like what will it take to get a Deshaun Watson? Obviously, that's still so up in the air that we could spend hours discussing what we think might happen. But it is just an interesting thought that, that many picks were on the move in this Goeff for Stafford deal. So I just wonder, like, what is it going to take to pry Deshaun Watson out of their hands?
Yep.
But I do think that what Deshaun Watson has done here, though, is he's actually lowered his trade value by saying, I'm not playing. Because it's like, well, now everyone knows, like, well, you don't get him anyway. So, he's kind of lowered what teams have to give up to get him. And maybe that's a good thing for him because now the team he goes to is going to be in a better position to build around him.
At the same time, though, Matthew Stafford said the same thing.
Well, that's true. But
he didn't say I'm not playing. They just made the mutual agreement.
But the Lions also are eating that contract, so they were like, well, if you want us to eat that contract, it's going to cost you. Exactly. Whereas now Houston's kind of like, well, I don't have a quarterback, and it is what it is. And I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, have you ever seen a football? I mean, it's not even off season yet either. Truthfully, have you seen a football season with so many quarterback trade talks? I mean, it's so unheard of to have so many quarterbacks being up for grabs and being possible traded, and now this Wentz thing possibly going to Chicago is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Like every now and then you hear like one or two quarterbacks maybe, but it's like every quarterback in the league now is like possibly on the move. Like
I remember when I was in college, I stated that football has the by far most boring offseason because of there's just no movement. You find your guy, you sign him, and they stay forever, no matter if the team is good or bad. AKA Matthew Stafford. And now players have realized they have a little more power than before because you have like NBA's off season is always just nuts. Everyone just signs everywhere, gets traded everywhere, and then football was like, okay, we're just going to peacefully re-sign here. The top 15 players on every team are going to be the top 15 players for the next 10 years, and and
that's the thing with football now, too is it's like honestly when it comes down to it, your casual person only knows 5 or 6 people on each team. And those people that are the ones that are staying on your team. The movement in the NFL has always been those other players that, the other little pieces that you don't know that much about. So it's like even the reports are just kind of under the radar, like, oh, yeah, we signed that lineman. Oh, yeah, we signed that defensive, back.
And basketball's crazy because there's only 15 guys on a roster.
Right, so and it's like
every move is like that much more.
Well,
and there's only 5 guys on the court, so like signing LeBron James, you go from a team that could have won 10 games to a playoff team the next year.
Right, and that's how it's so much different. It's hard to compare that to any other sport just because, I mean, you're basically saying in 5 guys, we can make a franchise, So, I mean, that would be insane.
2 stars and then a bunch of everyone else's.
Honestly, it's like NFL Street, basically. You only had 5 guys on your team and it was the best players on your team. No, it's just interesting though, because this is one of those off seasons where like so many people are talking about this movement, and I don't know. It just makes me wonder, as weird as this sounds, Brady leaving the Patriots kind of like, to me, kind of feels like the first domino of a quarterback leaving their franchise team. Like I know it's happened in the past, but that was like everyone thought that Belichick and Brady would retire together and always be together, and then it's like Brady leaves and signs somewhere else. And now it's like now the whole media is just like anybody could go anywhere. Anyone could go anywhere. It used to just be you just assumed everyone stayed where they were supposed to be, and now it's like he could go anywhere. He could go in. Even Aaron Rodgers could go anywhere. It's just crazy. You never used to think like that. I mean, I remember when Aaron Rodgers was declared the starter, and they got and Brett Favre didn't come back, and that was huge. It was like, dude, I can't believe the Packers let go of Brett Favre. It was like, whoa, why would they ever do that? Like, the only other time quarterbacks really moved was if like it was like one of those situations where it's like, oh, the player got hurt and we're not sure what he's gonna, like when Drew Brees left the Chargers, it was like, oh man, he got hurt. We're not even sure if he'll play again.
Or Drew Bledsoe signs a massive deal and gets hurt, and Tom Brady is the quarterback.
Right, and so it's one of those things that very rarely did quarterbacks, good quarterbacks, move. And so now it's like, man, you're hearing all this stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. Nowadays in the NFL, almost every quarterback is pretty solid now. It's not you have very few teams playing with kind of a quarterback. I mean, most teams have a pretty solid guy there. Obviously, some teams are still looking for it, but
even if they suck in the NFL, they're still like just way better on average than what they used to be.
And you never know, because most of those guys, like, given time, they're all freak athletes.
Mitch Trubisky, like, if Mitch Trubisky gets drafted by the Chiefs instead of the Bears, and then, like, let's say Mahomes goes to the Bears,
that's about to be the hottest take I've ever heard.
I can guarantee you, no, it's not going to be the hottest take I've ever seen. I can guarantee that Mahomes would have definitely seen less success in Chicago, and Mitch Trubisky would have seen far greater success in Kansas City. Do I think?
All right, hot take right here. Logan just said that if Mitch Trubisky got drafted by the Chiefs, that Trubisky would be the current Mahomes, and Mahomes would be the current Trubisky. That's what Logan said. You heard it here first.
That's literally what Jason just said. I just think when you talk about what's happening and like the ability of coaching and play calling, like
right.
It really matters where you go, but like in previously with quarterbacks in the past, you could put a bad quarterback with a good coach, and it'd be nothing. But now you could put a bad quarterback with a good coach, and you could really win a good amount of football games. But as long as you just had like the right stuff like around, and now you have a guy like Mitch Trubisky is not good, and then you have a coach who's horrible play calling, and they have the best team in the NFL, and they missed the playoffs. Well, actually, no, they made the playoffs, didn't they? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but barely.
Yeah, barely for the Bears.
Barely. Oh my god, we are so funny in this podcast. I don't know how people are not.
Yeah, it's
just flocking.
No, Mitch. In no case in the world would Mitch Trubisky have ever had a more successful career than Patrick Mahomes, even if they did switch places.
All right, you guys heard it. Logan said Mitchell Trubisky would be. He would be Patrick Mahomes right now.
Sam Howell is the future Patrick Mahomes.
Sam Howell.
You don't know who that is, do you?
I do, actually, because we bought the new Madden and we used the updated draft class, so I do.
So who's that?
He's a quarterback.
For who?
I don't know, but I knew he was in the top like 3 or 4 in the draft. So.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
That's funny. He's at the University of North Carolina, which is also where Mitchell went to school.
Very interesting. Speaking of draft, did you hear that Trevor Lawrence is having shoulder surgery on his throwing arm?
Oh, it's his non-throwing arm.
Is it? I thought I read throwing arm. Oh,
good reporting. Left shoulder tore his left labrum.
Well, as I've stated on this podcast before, I don't know anything about college, and so I just misread that. And I literally read it right before I got on.
Trevor Lawrence is a freak of nature. You could amputate his arm, and I'm taking him first.
His throwing arm?
Yes.
Yikes.
Make him throw left-handed. The dude's a freak. I seriously, I'm one of those
Hot take. Trevor Lawrence would be a god without his throwing arm. Yeah, you heard it here. You heard it from Logan here. Trevor Lawrence doesn't even need an arm to be a good quarterback.
That dude is the most. And there's a lot of people saying what I'm saying, because it's just fact. He's the most gifted college quarterback when it comes to.
I feel like we hear this every couple years too, which is what's insane. That quarterbacks just keep getting so much better.
But really, when you talk about the big people that really changed the level, it was Sam Bradford, who turned out to not be good. But when you talk about like when coming out of college, you got to talk about their college ratings. We're not saying what they did in the NFL. You had Peyton Manning a long time ago, Sam Bradford, Andrew Luck, and then Trevor Lawrence. This is like the next one. And then in like 6 years, there's going to be the next one that's going to go, he's the perfect prospect. And Trevor Lawrence is a perfect prospect to go play in the Sunshine State. The dude is Sunshine from the movie. Oh my God, I've only seen it like 15,000 times, but now I'm blanking on it. But anyways, I remember the Titans. And I don't know, I'm one of the guys that is a believer that that Trevor Lawrence is the next is he's going to walk in the NFL and he's going to be a top 15 quarterback the second he touches the field.
I'm all for it. I am all for it, but we need to talk a little Super Bowl here as we are going nutso on time here. In general, I don't know, but we're at like 20 minutes already for football. We went like 40 minutes in baseball. Anyways, so little Super Bowl. We did have a little bit of talk last week in the podcast, so if you do want to go back and listen to that, that'd be a good little listen. So we have the Chiefs and the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Everyone knows Tom Brady has been to the Super Bowl a ton. 50% of his career, he's been in the Super Bowl, which is absolutely insane to think about across any sport. But what's interesting about this game to me, as a non-fan for either team, I don't necessarily care. But it is kind of interesting because you've got Tom Brady, who is looking to kind of complete his goated career here, like, you know, one of the greatest quarterback of all time, all these Super Bowls. He's like a single-handed dynasty with his ability to win championships. And he's playing against Patrick Mahomes, who's now looking for back-to-back Super Bowls and, you know, possibly trying to create his own individual dynasty of Super Bowls there. You know, I mean, you're talking about two, or if he could get two already in his career, then you kind of start having that conversation. Oh, is he the next, you know, Tom Brady of Super Bowls? Is he going to keep leading his team to the Super Bowl? You know, which I do think is a little unrealistic, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you had a guy who's made it a ton, and now Patrick Mahomes early on in his career has made it to the Super Bowl a ton. And it just makes you wonder, is he kind of starting what Tom Brady is kind of leaving? You know, there's some interesting little conversation there. I don't know, though. I think it'll be an interesting game, I hope. But, I mean, I kind of made my little prediction last week, and I've already forgotten what I said, so it is what it is.
I'm pretty sure I remember last week that I said that the Chiefs were going to win this, and the Bucs were going to make it closer late than it actually was. I mean, I don't really know what's in the Super Bowl. I mean, not much has happened. I mean, the big news are the Chiefs' barber tested positive for COVID.
In the middle of cutting their hair?
Yeah, and the Chiefs' outside linebackers coach got in a car accident.
I did, I heard that as well.
That's literally, which is also Andy Reid's son. But that's also like what is like the news. It's like, I don't really care. I believe Antonio Brown's still questionable, but I believe Robinson has been COVID cleared. So that's big time. Tom Brady ain't messing around. Apparently that some players on his team were crying after they won like the NFC Championship, and he said, "What the F are you crying for? We still got a game to win."
Let's go.
I mean, I don't really know what to say about the Super Bowl. I know that I don't like the Tampa Bay Bucks or the Kansas City Chiefs.
You don't like the Chiefs. No, I think what's interesting about this game, you know, you got the high-powered Chiefs offense. That, you know, they won the Super Bowl. They're exciting. They're big play, and then you've got the flip side of a pretty strong defensive team with a quarterback who knows how to get his team to championships and win them.
Knows how to win.
Yeah, so it's a very, now, I mean, you can't count that against Mahomes either, because obviously he knows how to win because he's already done it. So that's where it's going to be a very interesting Super Bowl, because you've got, you know, a quarterback on one side that's super experienced in Super Bowls, knows how to create a winning environment, a winning team, and then on the other side you've got the team that just got done winning it. So obviously they know how to win a Super Bowl. So I do think it'll make for an interesting game. But, you know,
it is going to be a little interesting though, because last year the 49ers just tried not to lose the game and then they lost it.
Well, typically in any sport, if you play not to lose, you're going to lose.
But that's how Super Bowls are. I mean, people are just too scared to make the first mistake. So that's why, like, I believe in like 8 of the 9 Brady Super Bowls, the first quarter was scoreless. Teams are really scared to make the first mistake in a Super Bowl. No one wants to throw the first pick six. I believe the Chiefs aren't going to be scared. But at the same time, I know Tom Brady's not going to be scared. Do I think the Bucs are better? No. But I know this game's going to be decently close because
Brady will make
Until,
sure.
until I mean, to be fair, that Bills win was I said this last week, was like the most impressive game all season from any team. I think. I mean, to blow out the Bills is as impressive of a feat as I think any team has played. I mean, the fact that the Bucs won a football game in which Brady threw 3 picks is pretty crazy. But to be fair, the Packers are kings of losing games when they should win. Aaron Rodgers does not know how to win the NFC Championship game. Russell Wilson threw 4 picks in the NFC Championship game, and they won that one too. So I don't know. I don't really have much to say. I pretty much said the exact same thing I'm going to say last week. Is I think that was the most impressive win of anyone all season was the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to have this game in control going into the fourth, and I think Brady and them are going to score late and need like an onside kicker or like a 3-and-out or something to get it, and it's just not going to work. And so I think the score is going to look like, the Patriots. I keep calling them the Patriots because of Brady, but like, the Bucs lost by 6, but it was really like a late touchdown and a failed onside kick that made it so close.
Yeah, I honestly don't even remember who I said I thought was going to win.
It's also a 5-hour game, which really always makes me sad. But at the same time, it's Super Bowl and it's exciting, and the commercials are pretty funny too. So
yeah, so it'll be interesting. And I mean, I think that we talked about it some last week, and now the combination of this week. And honestly, everyone everywhere is talking Super Bowl, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are sick of hearing it anyways. It's one game, and honestly, for most people who are football fans don't actually care about the teams in the Super Bowl. It's that simple, because most of us are not fans of those two teams because there's so many other teams. Super Bowl's exciting, but I'm more excited to eat good food, hang out with some people safely. No COVID spreads.
Our buddy's 2-year-old son. Our buddy's son is turning 2 on Sunday.
Today's his birthday.
Well, today's his birthday, yeah, but
yes, his party is Sunday.
His party is Sunday.
So we will be doing that. Hopefully there's some good food there. Probably go do something for the Super Bowl, get some more good food. Should be a good day for us. Anything else you want to say on football before we move on? All right, I'll take that as a no. So now we move on to a good old Overwatch here on the Last Inning Touchdown podcast, the lit podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcast, anchor.com/Last Inning Touchdown, on Twitter at Last Inning TD. So Overwatch League, I do know that there was a little bit of a signing, and honestly, I don't know if there were other ones, but it made some news that Valentine and Faith signed to Boston Uprising. They are 2 contenders players. Personally, I have no idea who they are because I am not that deep into it, but their highlight reel was kind of cool. Their little highlight reel was kind of cool, and I saw some people on Reddit and different places saying that they don't think Boston is going to be a bottom feeder team. They don't think they're going to be good, but they don't think they're going to be a joke of the league anymore. So it does sound like some people have some faith in Boston going on this year. But more interesting, and it's been a while. I kind of forgot about this, but I was over last weekend. They completed that next cup, and what was pretty interesting to me was that Seoul Dynasty the first weekend beat like everybody. And then the second weekend, the Fuel beat Seoul, and then the Dragons beat Seoul. And so it's like, it kind of makes me look at it and go, maybe the Fuel are around the same level as these teams they're playing, and maybe they're not just being the Fuel where they play to their competition. Maybe they are good enough to beat some of these teams. And I know that I did read some of the tweets from some of the Fuel players and things like that. And basically they're saying that like playing the weekend before really helped them improve for the following weekend. Like really getting to play and compete as a team and not just scrim really helped them, kind of mesh and become a nice little unit. And that paid off for them as they beat Seoul 3-2. And then I think the Dragons beat Seoul pretty handedly, and won the next cup, which I don't really understand how the seeding worked for that thing, because
I don't know.
A little confusing that Fuel beat Seoul and then Seoul played the Dragons in the finals. So I guess it was like a round robin thing, I guess.
Yeah, it was a round robin. I don't know. We can't read that.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I could put it all in translate and hope, but I mean, it just appears to be a round robin type thing, which is interesting, which is fine because it's nothing too serious. But it was a little reassuring because I know last week's podcast I was kind of down in the dumps, thinking, man, maybe Fuel's not as good as I thought they'd be.
Oh yeah, everyone dumped on the Fuel, dude. Just after getting 6-0 map count or whatever, they just dumped on him.
Well, so what's interesting about that is, though, I saw a lot of power rankings that still had Fuel pretty high up. And I remember seeing it, and I was kind of like, man, you guys are awfully confident in that. Either that or you just didn't pay attention to the games that just got done.
What would you say high up?
Like in top 5 teams.
Oh, like in the West?
In general. So they just had him in general. Right. So, but anyways, I did think it was promising to see them compete. Because I remember watching them play the Dragons, and I was like, wow, they're hanging in there, but they're not finishing any of these maps, which has always been Fuel. Like, that's always been the Fuel. But then they actually beat Seoul, and I'm like, oh, let's go. We just beat the team that dominated everybody last week. So, I mean, it does show that on any given day, Fuel can be good, and any given day, they can be good enough to actually win. So now we just got to see, can they be good enough to win over the season repeatedly? That's what I'm looking forward to at this point. And so
I'm looking right now at like a GM predicted ranking, like a general manager predicted ranking of the teams, and 75% of the teams has the Shock finishing in first place. And then,
hey, that's a shock.
Yeah, 75%. No GM predicted them outside the top 4. They had the Fuel predicted to finish 3rd in the league.
So, you know what's actually interesting? And
the Outlaws to finish 10th.
I was looking at this on Anchor, and did you know that our Overwatch part of this podcast on Anchor actually has the most listens of all, like the most common section of our podcast to be on the top 10 listened segments? Overwatch
is the iJoel rant segment?
Yeah, basically. That's pretty much what it is. But, I mean, we got to have some stuff due to the fact that there's not a league yet. Like, there's nothing to do, really. So, it is news right now in Overwatch that it was basically reported that Overwatch 2 would not be released in 2021, and a lot of people thought it would be. I've even seen statements as far as, can Overwatch survive Overwatch 2 not coming out in 2021? And I think the answer is obviously yes. I mean, it's made it this long, and as much as people hate it, they still love it. It's made it this long. It is a little sad that we're not getting Overwatch 2, but that does make me think for BlizzCon, their big Overwatch announcement will be a new hero. I think we're going to be getting a new hero soon. It's been a while, and BlizzCon is coming up. Everyone thought we were getting Overwatch 2 announcement, but I mean, if you want to settle some of these people being kind of mad, a cool hero would definitely be a good way to, get everybody still hyped up about your game, keep people playing, things like that. I think that would be a cool announcement. I'd be just fine with that. And honestly, the thing is, like, all these people are so wins Overwatch 2. Like, I see it all the time on Twitter, like, and all the memes about how Overwatch 2 is never actually coming and this and that. Like, I don't think people realize that Overwatch 2 is basically just Overwatch 1 with some PvE. Like, that's my understanding of what Overwatch 2 is going to be, is that you're basically buying PvE story missions, and then they're just going to add to online a little bit, and that you can still play regular Overwatch as Overwatch 2 online. So I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as everyone is kind of making it seem. But maybe they will. Maybe they look at it and say Overwatch 2 is the perfect time to kind of reset some stuff that's wrong, that everybody is so mad about. I don't know. I'm obviously not in their head, but I do. Here's the risky side of video games right now. COVID has obviously messed up a lot of these developers, time frame on when they were going to release stuff. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it, pushing it back to make sure it's right. But once you start playing the game of it was supposed to come out and we're pushing it back, you have to get it right when it comes out. Because when you push it back to get it right and then it releases and it's still wrong, look at Cyberpunk. That game died. I mean, that thing 90 miles an hour into a brick wall. That is literally what happened to Cyberpunk because it was pushed back like 4 times and then came out complete dookie. Complete dookie.
Unplayable on one of the systems. The fact that I don't know if Sony's ever released a major AAA release before, but they took it out of their store.
Yeah, that's like absolutely insane. Like
I said released, I think. I meant like they took... Like,
right. Sony literally said, I don't want to make money off this dog dookie game. Like, that's literally what Sony said.
Like, we have, like, the reviews and the refund requests and everything. They were just like, we can't do this. And some of the glitches are...
bad. We've all seen it. Anyone who has followed any kind of gaming social media has seen all about how bad Cyberpunk found out. And there's still people that are saying, hey, it's a great game. It's a great game. You need to play. It's a great game. I believe you.
Sky, it's never going to recover.
I believe you that it's probably great. But once you have that, press, it never comes back. And Overwatch is a game that is very popular, but has a very negative, connotation to it right now. Like a lot of people are vocally against the state of Overwatch, despite the fact that I honestly believe a good 90% of the player base is perfectly fine with how Overwatch plays. But there is a huge vocal, people on Twitter that just hate on the game constantly. So if Overwatch 2 does not release in really good shape, that side of Overwatch is going to dominate the media of it coming out. They are going to destroy that game if it comes out and it is not everything people would hope. If it comes out and it's basically just like the event missions they have every now and then where they have, Halloween has them and Archives has them where you play those little PvE missions. And it's like, oh, it's kind of cool the first time you do it. And then you're like, okay, this is really easy. These bots suck. And like, it's really not all that fun to me. If that's literally what they make as the PvE for the game, there's going to be outrage. So yeah. I really, really do hope that they come up with something cool on how to do that, because personally, I kind of like the backstories that come with all the heroes. I'm kind of into it. I know you're not as much, but I have watched a lot of those videos. I've read some of the comics. Like I've gotten into it. I enjoy it. So I do hope that because they've taken the time to do so much with that lore in the background, that they're going to really do its justice with that PvE side, because if they don't, that could actually be the end of Overwatch. I think Overwatch as is, if you just kept producing heroes, would continue to survive as is. I think it would. But if you release Overwatch 2 and it's a dud, you could kill the entire franchise.
Yep.
Absolutely could kill the entire franchise. And so that's where Blizzard has to be very careful. But yeah, I mean, we've got a new event that just started with the Lunar New Year. Have you gotten a chance to look at the skins that came out with Lunar New Year?
I saw the. I'm going to look at them now because I have it pulled up, but I only saw the Orisa skin. Okay,
so Orisa has a bowl skin, which is actually kind of cool, and Orisa's never really had a cool skin before. So that's kind of neat. Echo got a pretty decent skin. It's kind of just like a bird thing, but it's a well-designed skin. It's a lot of good details. Reaper got a skin that's got a lot of nice little details to it. That's kind of the theme of these ones, is that they have just a lot of detail to them. And Bastion may have got the absolute goofiest skin I've ever seen. Bastion looks like a freaking dragon.
Yeah. Oh my god, his chest is a dragon. I wonder what he looks like when he's in the mode.
Yeah, it's absolutely kind of ridiculous, but it's kind of silly, and I always do like that Overwatch is willing to take that kind of extreme silliness with some of their skins. Overwatch has definitely done skins right. They have done a good job at producing skins that are interesting and fun to use and things like that. And then Ash got a skin where Bob is literally a tiger, which is pretty sick. So Bob is a giant tiger in one of his Lunar New Year skins.
I'm going.
I'm going. It's a pretty cool little skin. Ash is kind of whatever in that skin, but Bob is awesome.
Tiger Huntress. Oh my god, he is.
Yeah, that might be the coolest Bob, but Ash is I don't know. I kind of think Ash kind of looks lame, but Bob is awesome in that skin. And then also Reinhardt got a special skin with the BlizzCon ticket if you're willing to spend $60 on a BlizzCon ticket. But you get bonuses for like all of Blizzard's games also if you buy it. But that's up to you and your pocketbook, what you can afford. Do not buy things outside of your family budget or you will have no money. This is now a money podcast.
It's the hot take.
Yeah.
Mitch Trubisky podcast. Yes.
It's the hot take. Mitchell Trubisky could have been better than Patrick Mahomes.
It's the should I leave the dogs in here with you or leave them out podcast.
It is.
It's
the dogs have been hyped all night for this podcast, and we love to see it.
Yeah, it's gonna go back to me locking the dogs in here. They have been they barked at something happened. They barked something else, and then very recently they barked because I think my friggin' roommate moved. Like literally just like opened his door. They started barking like crazy, dude. Almost.
Yeah, they're just adjusting to new people living in the house. But I don't have anything else for Overwatch. Overwatch is still kind of slow right now.
I got nothing for Overwatch. I just want the lead to start. Like Overwatch to me is something that like I play it here and then. We're actually gonna go play it right now.
So with that being said, though, thank you guys so much for stopping by the video, the podcast, however you get your information from us. We really do appreciate you guys so much. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following the podcast on your favorite podcast site so you know when we upload. We do appreciate you guys. We will see you next time. Oh, I just smacked my mic.
Bye.